Greetings. Today's guest is the AKAI EVI 1000, which works in conjunction with the AKAI EWV 2000 synth module. Without one, you can't use the other. They go together, like bread and butter. The technology for this instrument was invented by a man called Niall Steiner. Niall Steiner had already been making similar instruments on his own with his partner, Mr. Parker, and later with a collaboration with the Krumar company in Italy, and eventually partnered with AKAI to make this instrument and its woodwind-friendly counterpart, the EWI 1000, which uses the same synth module. What's more important for us trumpet players is the fingering system here. I'm just going to slowly work my way down a C major scale so you can see how the fingering works. You see, I've already used the open fingering for the top C. The AKAI doesn't recognize the harmonic system, doesn't work anything like a trumpet would. So I can either use that false fingering or I can use this ring here, which functions as, let's say, a fourth valve. Same problem as before. We've already used the open fingering once. To change to the low C, I've got to do a couple things. So I'm turning this canister to my left as I lift my finger off the fourth valve. And there's a series of rollers back here which are used to change octaves. So it's got a really extended range. You might have heard some really awful sounds coming out a couple of times from the synth module. That's due to imprecise fingering. Also, these rollers need to be lubricated occasionally, and it's about time that that should be done. The AKAI version of the electric valve instruments, as I said, AKAI partnered with Niall Steiner, and I believe this first came out in about 1988. The saxophone version as well, or woodwind version, the EWI, was released about the same time, and the EWI iterations continue to this day. The EVI version didn't get past this first and last iteration due to a few factors. First of all, I believe in 1988, I think this whole setup here cost around $2,000, which was a lot of money then, and still is. And the second thing is, it's quite difficult to deal with the fingerings and play cleanly. It takes a lot of practice. It's not instant success. If you're a really good trumpet player, it doesn't mean you're going to be an instantly good EV player. You need to keep that in mind. If you have good finger technique, if you grew up on Herbert Clark's technical studies like I did, then you have an advantage. But it's nothing but hard practice to just, you heard the noise, the awful noise there, the glitch we call it. So yeah, these were pretty much a failure from a marketing perspective. They were discontinued. I believe the last units were sold off quite cheaply. Again, this is unique. You can only use this with this and vice versa. There were other iterations of the EWI, for example, that were also this kind of combo setup. And again, you can't really switch controllers with different synth modules of those instruments either. So in that sense, it is kind of constricting, but you do have MIDI out. You can connect this to other MIDI instruments. It's only monophonic. You don't have MIDI in, so you can't send info from an external source via MIDI into the unit. And they're a little bit temperamental. This day and age, you probably would have a really difficult time finding someone who could actually repair or adjust one of these instruments. It's just that difficult, and you know, a lot of time has passed. Again, talking about fingerings, there are a couple of workarounds that are pretty helpful. You see these raised keys here. I've been using this part of the keys. That's, say, your valve button on your trumpet, for example. But to work around some of the brake maneuvers, going over the brake, I like to call it. It's like the brake on a clarinet. Basically, you have, you know, 50% chance of success. So, you know, that helps a little bit. Yeah, some of those bad notes were because I was touching both the trill key, these are called trill keys, and the actual third valve button. So yeah, that was my bad. So again, just to get some success with this, you have to practice really simple stuff, slowly, precisely, metronome, scales, arpeggios, and it just opens up another world that you wouldn't have access to. So in that sense, it's worth the extra effort. You've got a bunch, I don't know how many sounds are on this thing, and some of them are actually good. Some of them are not. So yeah, it's a lot of fun in that sense. There's a bunch of controls here. This is for how the sensitivity of the breath. You know, I just went past the good point of breath sensitivity and the synth sounds on its own. So you want to get as close to there as you possibly can. Yeah, the dynamic range is very extended. And you're hearing the pressure of the air. I'll explain a little bit about that in a minute. that is triggering the filter frequency. So as we play acoustic instruments, we play louder, the volume goes up. Also, the tone quality changes. So opening that filter really helps to imitate. Here, with my right thumb, I'm using the vibrato button here to get a little life into the sound. And if I move up onto these metal sensors here, it's similar to like a pitch wheel on a synthesizer, a keyboard synthesizer. And I can change the range of that. I've got it just about like half step, I guess, right now. No, it's a whole step. Okay, this is looks kind of like a sort of similar to a double reed instrument or something like that. I'm not a real fan of this. I'm a trumpet player. I'd rather have a different setup, similar to what I have on this Berglund Instruments new EVI. So, you know, this is a little bit more familiar, but in either case, you know, you're not blowing a ton of air into this thing because it just doesn't admit that. So it's sensing the pressure of the air that you're using, but most of the air is escaping, or you would, you know, fall over unconscious, fainting. So on the microphone, you're hearing the increasing amounts of air escaping from the corners of my mouth as I blow harder. And I do that to get obviously more volume, and in this case, opening up the filter frequency to change the character of the sound. Once again, it's a lot of fun. It's challenging. I remember being frustrated when I first got this. Was my first and not my last EVI, actually my only AKAI EVI. And I was very frustrated when I got it because I was expecting that, well, you know, I play the trumpet pretty well, so this will be a piece of cake, and it's not. It's very frustrating, and we're talking about the fingerings here, and it's just a lot of hard practice and slow and scales and arpeggios and metronome and that kind of thing. So again, it opens up a world, sonically speaking, that you didn't have access to before, but you become a kid again with respect to how to actually play the instrument accurately.